Hello, welcome to this video. This video is going to outline the guidelines for writing assignments. As a psychology major, from part 1, part 2, all the way to part 4, we're expected to write assignments. And such assignments should be at the level that is expected for a psychology graduate. So this video is going to illustrate some of the essential aspects that are important in writing proper psychology academic essays. First of all, we have to understand why it is important to write assignments. As you might know, assignments are set for you to enable you to teach you how to study purposely, systematically and independently, and also they are there to give the necessary practice in answering questions and in preparation for examinations. Assignments also give you feedback and help you to correct your mistakes or misunderstanding in terms of relevant concepts, and also to help you monitor your progress to ensure whether you are understanding issues or you need help. So eventually, assignments also are important as they help you attain the coursework marks that are required for your final examinations. In order to understand essay writing, you have to be able to interpret essay titles. And it is therefore important for you to develop the ability to recognize the requirements of essay questions by learning to identify key instruction words, content words, and special conditions that might be there within the essays. Key instructional words include words that are important, for example, account for. When an essay says to account for something, you have to be able to explain the reasons for, giving an indication of all the relevant examples. Do not confuse this with giving account. For example, an essay may account for the rise of behaviorism in the early 18th century. So you have to be able to explain the reasons why behaviorism arose during the later part of the 18th century. And if an essay says describe, relate, give an account of, trace, you have to be able to organize facts in sequence under the main subordinate points. Comment where necessary, e.g., describe Darwin's theory of evolution, or trace the history of educational psychology in Africa. You have to organize those facts in such a way that you illustrate the main points. And if an essay says enumerate, outline, state, list, you have to organize facts in sequence but be concise or brief, omitting minor details to classify material. For example, an essay may say outline Sigmund psychosexual development. So you have to be able to give the facts in their sequence. If an essay says summarize, you have to be able to give points and facts, briefly leaving out details and illustrations. For example, summarize the role of psychology in contemporary life issues at personal, family, social, national, and international levels. You have to be able to give the main facts without giving out any other details. And if an essay says analyze, discuss, you have to visit the various aspects of the concept and approach it from various angles. Discuss the applicability of Piaget's 4 stages of cognitive development to a person growing up in any context of your choice. So you have to be able to give the applicability of that issue and give it from various angles, for and against. And if it says critically discuss or review, you have to be able to give a critical appraisal of the subject, including the following, where appropriate, main characteristics, definition, reasons, pros and cons, advantages, and disadvantages, as well as strengths and weaknesses. An example, critically discuss any two schools of psychology, development and relevancy of the school to the understanding of psychology. So you have to be able to give the pros and cons. And if it says explain how, interpret, you have to clarify and spell out the material you present, give reasons, important features, and comment where necessary. And if it says define, you have to write an appraisal providing an authoritative meaning. You have to state the limits of the definition and show how and where defining the various categories. A question may say, define the term community psychology. So you have to be able to give an appraisal of community psychology, issuing out all the main categories or issues that you might think of. And if it says evaluate, you have to be able to carefully appraise the issues at hand, citing both advantages and limitations, emphasize views of authorities and personal judgments based on the facts presented in the essay. For example, it might say evaluate the effectiveness of the eclectic approach as a therapeutic technique. So you have to be able to give the advantages and limitations of that concept. And if it says justify, you have to write a critical appraisal to support a given viewpoint. For example, justify the use of the eclectic approach in psychotherapy. So you have to be able to justify why the eclectic approach is to be used. And if it says proof, you have to establish that something is true by citing factual evidence or giving clear logical reasons. You have to prove for example, prove the effectiveness of systematic desensitization in eradicating anxiety disorders. So you have to be able to prove that systematic desensitization is effective in eradicating anxiety disorders. Also, if you cannot prove it, you have to give the other side of the term. So you have to be clear and concise. And if it says illustrate, for this you have to be required to use specific examples, figures, diagrams, explain, demonstrate, or clarify the problem or issue at hand. An example might include illustrate the role of alternative health systems in the management of mental health in African communities. So you have to be able to recognize how alternative health systems play a role in the mental health in African communities. So you have to put figures, diagrams, and demonstrate clearly the problem at hand. In this case, you have to illustrate alternative health systems in their management of mental health. So you have to give a balanced view of the issues at hand. And if a question asks you to compare, you have to look at the characteristics that resemble each other, emphasize similarities, but be aware also of points of difference, mentioning them where necessary. For example, it might say compare any two child human development theories. So you have to be able to make a comparison of these two theories, illustrating the similarities where they are similar and where they are different. You have to illustrate. So in other words, if a question says illustrate, compare, you have to be able to make a comparison of the two. So in other words, your essay should be balanced, not be one-sided, so as to put out all the views clearly and also ensure that you have understood and have clearly illustrated the two issues at hand. If there are three, you have to also compare the three as well as show your viewpoint in terms of where you stand besides the team. So that's all for now. Thank you for listening to this video and watching. Thank you. Also subscribe to this channel. Thank you. Wishing you all the best in your studies.